everybody, Keisha here, and today I am here with my friend
Jennifer Guskin,
and we need your help. We are right now working on advocacy for combating human trafficking, and here's why. So we'll give you a little bit of background of our story and why we're doing what we're doing.
I was adopted as an infant by a couple who sold me throughout my childhood. I have been to Epstein Island and on multiple Lolita Express types of flights as a child. After I went public, Child Protective Services opened a substance-exposed newborn case, even though all tests came back negative, and they told me that if I wouldn't stop posting on social media, I would never see my daughter again. I started to connect how I was adopted as an infant and then sold throughout my childhood, how many other children who have been through the adoption, foster, and CPS pipelines have also been trafficked to Epstein's Elk.
And as many of you guys know already, based on the work that we do at the Karis Project, I'm an American Indian born in Canada under the Jay Treaty. My father and I were exposed in the improper contagion mitigation for the COVID pandemic in early 2020. As a result of this, I lost everything: a house, cars, corporate assets, jobs. Bank accounts were shut down in Canada, and I fled to the US as an American Indian, fully documented, and was trafficked by rogue agents in ICE and other agents in the government, and forced to live with single American men. I was even imprisoned for 7 months initially, and then trafficked throughout the states. Put on full surveillance tracking and wasn't allowed to leave the city, house, or state without permission, or work without permission. And that happened for many years, and I was on and off the streets because of that, and in and out of shelters. And that is just a small example of what many go through in this trafficking system, be it the family courts or otherwise. So that's why the Karis Project will be going to DC to speak with representatives and do live reporting. We're also going to be in contact with other families who are dealing with human trafficking, and through the CPS courts or through any other means, lesser versions of trafficking, and doing reporting on them live and otherwise. We will also be working on, we ultimately want to shine light on what's going on with the trafficking here in the US. And we also want to meet with various agencies in DC, and we'll be going back and forth for training sessions and other things so that we can be better equipped to help people deal with resolving some of the issues that we're seeing. We will also be putting forth petitions in government to help people get justice, and that's something that we have been working on already so far. We have some petitions that have recently been filed in the state of Colorado, Michigan, Texas, and Arizona, and we will be continuing.
But we can't do this on our own. We will be traveling to events and training courses, as well as DC on a consistent basis. We also have to get acceptable equipment, such as computers, cameras, interview gear, etc. There will be other miscellaneous costs that would also be like gas, food, and rooms if necessary.
So that is why we are working towards combating human trafficking, and that is exactly why we need your help. We cannot do this alone, and most what the Karis Project does is on its own dime. And so we do love and appreciate each and every one of you that support us and all the work that we do. As many of you know, we also live stream on Lindell TV every day. And everything we do, like I said, is on our own dime. So we appreciate all the love and support and all the people who do donate. And we would very much love and appreciate that still. Thank you everybody for your time and considerations. And thank you for all the support. And we will catch you guys in the next one, and hopefully we might see you guys in the future and come across you and maybe be able to do some great things together.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Karis Project podcast. Today we have with us Vajish Sabarhal. I probably botched that. That's all right. Sorry, but he's running for the PPC in was it York Vaughan? King Vaughan, that's right. I mean, I'm not as familiar with Toronto as it used to be, but I mean, it's still in the the Toronto area, and you're also in dentistry, a dental surgeon that's
Correct.
decided to go and throw your hat in the ring. So, how about you introduce yourself to our audience and maybe correct me on my botching of your name?
Well, first of all, Dill, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It means a lot to me. My name is Bigish Sabarwal. I'm running for MP in King Vaughan. King Vaughan is a riding in Ontario. It is north of Toronto, and the reason why I am wishing to represent the people of King Vaughan is because I have not only been a citizen here for 20 plus years. I've also still run a very successful dental practice. I know a lot of friends. I have colleagues here. I have lots of patients here. So I know this community. I've been fortunate enough to see how great this community was approximately 10, 15 years ago. But at the same time, I'm extremely disappointed to see how this community and perhaps overall Canada is currently.
This is something that I've been hearing quite frequently with people starting to run for politics. Is that because I ran in Saskatchewan last year, and if you had asked any of my friends if I would go into politics, they would have said when hell froze over, right? Because I was just not the political guy. I liked science and that kind of stuff. Wanted to be free to speak my mind, but I got tired of what was going on. And like you said, you saw the way your community was and where you lived, and then you watched Trudeau come in and you watched the wheels fall off the bus. And right, so what was it? What was the turning point for you where you said, "Okay, this is enough. I need to run."
The turning point was approximately, I would say, 10 years ago. Unfortunately, my father passed away. He was on vacation in Dubai. He had a massive heart attack, and my father and myself, we were really, really close. He was my best friend. When he passed away, I had gotten into a little bit of a deep sadness. And at that time, the government had just changed, and I believe at the finance minister of the moment, Mr. Bill Morneau, was giving a statement on television where he was making some rules which I believe were not in favor of small business. And at that time, I was yelling at the television, and my son, of around 10 or 11 years old at the time, came to me and he said, "Dad, why are you sitting here and yelling? He can't hear you." And that was my turning point where I said, instead of me complaining, why not use that energy and funnel it towards making the change that I want? And that's where I mentally decided that I'm going to do something. I always, as a young individual, had many leadership roles, not political roles, but roles where you take a problem and rather than complaining about it, you look for a solution. And that's what we need. We need solutions, not just reiterating the problems. We all know the problems. We can
Yes,
feel them.
I agree 100%. We need solutions, not talking about problems, right? Like, I don't care about
Absolutely.
that. Fix it. So,
I agree.
what then made you gravitate over to the PBC? Because I know in Western Canada, you look at it and you see Liberal winning the Toronto area over and over again. So, and I know that's not always been the case, but it's like lately, it seems like they win Toronto and Montreal, and then they take the country. It's just like,
Absolutely. Just because of our first past the post system. So as you know, the People's Party of Canada is a relatively new party. Our leader, Mr. Maxime Bernier, was in fact a conservative. In fact, he was in Stephen Harper's government Minister of Foreign Affairs. Additionally, when there was a leadership contest, after Mr. Harper. The last two candidates were Mr. Andrew Scheer and Mr. Maxime Bernier. Originally, my philosophy really was towards the Conservative Party when I didn't have a choice other than that. But as the PPC branched off, I realized that my policies are fairly conservative, especially when it comes to fiscal management. And I believe that fiscal management is essential at this juncture for our nation to pay great attention to, because again, if we continue to go down the fiscally irresponsible path that we have till date, things will forget getting better, forget staying the same. They're going to get substantially worse.
I agree with you. Like, I mean, I don't care what party you're in. You can't sit down and justify the insane amount of spending, the waste of taxpayer money, and then increasing the burden on the taxpayer. Like you said, this is going to get. We're going to turn into Venezuela. The This is where we're headed if the brakes are not put on this. It
I'm in complete agreement with you in the fact that we need change. I am not going to say anything, and I've made this promise to myself. I'm not going to say anything bad about any particular political individual, political party, political entity. That is not going to create a solution. The blame game doesn't take you far. People today want a solution. When you go outside, when you just look at your society in general, when I look at my patient pool, when I look at my friends, when I look at their families, they don't seem happy. Why? There's a reason. We're in one of the richest countries when it comes to natural resources. We have fresh air, fresh water, resources that any other nation would be envious of. We've been gifted from God. God has given us that gift. But as its citizens, a majority of us don't feel happy. That saddens me.
well,
It saddens me a lot.
yes, because we watched our prosperity diminish, where more Canadians are dependent and they're losing their food security, and we all know the reasons why. We also know how to fix it. One of the simple things is stop spending money like like it's you can manufacture it. Like, this is we have to stop our spending. We have to control, like, as the government policies that we've allowed to happen, especially over COVID, and then giving away money to other places. When our For example, in the Ukraine, we're spending money sending stuff over the Ukraine. Our troops here are eating spoiled rations. I mean, why is that's not hard to figure out.
No. Dale, the truth of the matter is if you're fortunate enough as an individual, as a company, as a nation, if you're fortunate enough that you have vast sums of wealth, that your people are well taken care of, there is no harm in helping others. That's what
No,
humanity is about. You must help others. But however, you can't help others at the expense of your citizens. That's where I draw the line. In my personal life, I do like to help others, right?
yes,
I can't help others if everyone in my house needs a piece of bread. I got to put bread on my table first so I can make sure that my family's taken care of. And of course, I want to help others. That's part of being human.
I agree. Like, there's nothing, like I say, I don't have problem if they're helping people that need help, but don't help
First,
people.
take care of your own people first.
Yes, it's like if I'm drowning, I can't save someone else who's drowning because I'm drowning too. And Canadians
Absolutely.
are drowning, and we need to stop Canadians from drowning before we can save other people. Otherwise, we're all going to drown.
And here's the thing: if just to use that metaphor, if you've drowned already, you're of no use to anybody either,
Exactly.
right? So and these are the policies, and the issue is that when you mention these straightforward, common sense policies, they're turned around and they're used as these attacks against you. It's not an attack. It should not be used as an attack. It's just a solution. And we need to implement these solutions. That's one of the solutions we need to implement. We need to implement a solution where each time the government overspends, misspends our hard earned tax dollars, it can't come back to the taxpayer demanding more.
No, that would be like if I'm working and I'm paying my bills, but I give most of my money to my neighbor and then I go back to my boss and say, please give me more money.
And
That
your boss will say, impossible, I can't.
exactly. So
You know,
why is the government doing this? Right?
you need individuals, regardless of political affiliation, you need individuals who have fiscal responsibility. And that fiscal responsibility is clearly demonstrated if they have been in the private sector, if they've had a real job in their life, right? Because you have to, that's how you learn how to manage money. You learn how to swim when you're in the deep end. You're going to learn fiscal management when you perhaps have a small, medium business to run. If you have not been in that position, then how will you learn fiscal responsibility? If you haven't run a household and you don't have any budgets for your household, how will you have any fiscal responsibility? You need that responsibility demonstrated clearly on all levels, whether it's at a micro level of your own home, or whether it's at a larger level of a small, medium, large enterprise.
If like I mean, balancing a checkbook should like everybody should know how to do that. And if you can't balance a checkbook, then you should not be in government. I don't care what party you're in. If you can't understand that you shouldn't spend more than you have, then that's a problem because this isn't we're not act this is like literally not rocket science. It's like just be responsible. This is all we're asking. I don't care what party you are. Just be responsible with the money.
Absolutely. Listen, at times, at times, governments, I get it. They do have to go into deficits. If you're having a large infrastructure project, which is going to be done over many, many years, of course, the government is going to have, in that case, they've got to borrow money. There's got to be a deficit. But for everyday functioning of government, should we always be racking up the credit card bill? No, we shouldn't, but we
Well,
do.
well, that's exactly it. People have money for emergencies, and you sometimes have to do something because something comes up, like there was a natural disaster. You can't control that, so sometimes that happens. But when what we're seeing here, this is not what we're seeing. We're seeing consistent cost overruns and then expanding the government and then saying we're creating jobs. I like for me when I sit down and look at this, I'm like, this is this is insane. Like this is not reasonable because you got somebody here that can't find a job, but you're going and saying, well, you're spending more money on hiring people in the government, which is like the most inefficient, most expensive way to do things. Like the private sector can do most of what the government does, and they should because it's more efficient. This is just what I think.
Listen, efficiency and best policy should be implemented in government.
Yes,
Implement best policies, and those best policies can be taken from businesses. Those best policies can be taken from other governments. There's no harm in learning a best policy from someone who's doing things better than you. Isn't that how we individually grow as people? that we learn something from either our experience, or either we learn it through the experiences of others. And the government should start to do that, but they haven't.
That yes, and so this is where we're at right now. This is why I'm saying from the past track record, because if you had the way I look at the government, they work for us as the people. We're the government.
Absolutely.
We send them there to do that because we don't have time to do this. So they're saying, okay, here's the job. Go ahead and look after the affairs for us. So now if you had an employee, which is the government is our employee, and they kept putting you in the red continually, and they were not justifying the spending, there was no emergency, you're watching the bills rack up and you're watching your business fail, are you going to keep that employee time and time again? No, you're going to
No,
fire them.
absolutely, absolutely. Because if you want survival of your business, you're going to have no other choice. And that's what Canadians in general need to open their eyes to. The mainstream media always is talking about the mainstream parties. You've seen over the last decades what the mainstream parties have done. Whether that party wears the color red, whether it wears it blue, whether it wears it orange, the results have always been the same. And as Einstein said, if you keep on doing the same thing and expecting a different result, well, that's the definition, according to Einstein, of insanity. So we need to, as Canadians, we need to give, at minimum, those candidates, regardless of party stripe, that have the proficiency of being a good representative. Because you're right, as a person in the government, it is your responsibility to serve those who have given you the honor and privilege to do so.
That's 100% right. And when you want to be as efficient as possible whenever doing anything, because as it's a business, running a business, being a worker, the more efficient you are, the more value that you're bringing, and the more that you can add, the more benefits you're going to get for your labor. Nobody wants to work harder than they need to be, and if you're going to work hard, the more benefit you can get. Why not? Because you're putting out the labor. Why not have the same approach to government?
Well, there's a reason why this government doesn't have that approach. I'll tell you why. When in Canada, when you work twice as many hours, do you get paid twice the paycheck? No.
No.
Because what's happening is those people who are putting in the extra hours, the extra time, staying away from their family so they could perhaps do overtime or take that shift that nobody else wants so they can, get a little bit more on their paycheck. It's not linearly given to them because now they're in a higher tax bracket and at the end of the day they net less money. What is that doing? The government has all of a sudden, because of their unfair taxation policies, they are punishing those who wish to be productive, whereas they're silently promoting unproductivity. And then you go around and saying, hey, why is it that Canadians aren't as productive as Americans? Well, because you created a system that way. If you create a system where you're going to penalize productivity, what's going to happen? You're going to have no productivity.
Yes, before I got into engineering, I was a heavy duty mechanic and I worked in the oil field and so forth. And I remember that you had to watch when you worked past a certain amount of overtime. I would get very angry when I saw my deductions on my paycheck because once you started to get into those overtime and you're making a very healthy hourly wage, and then when you're looking at the overtime, but then by the time the government gets through, I'm getting like less, like $10, maybe a few dollars more than that per hour, and they're taking away most of my money.
So
How?
Dale, how does when you realize that reality, did you put your hand up next time when someone said, "Do you want to do overtime?" Or did you say, you know what, forget it?
Well, why am I gonna? That's like, why would I do all of that work to let someone else get all the benefit of my work?
Simple questions, simple solutions. Simple questions, simple solutions. But this is the monster that has been created. This is the monster that's been created, and no government has come in and said, okay, you know what? Our tax code is from the 60s. How about we update our tax code? How about we look into that?
But they're literally punishing people for working hard. Like, this is what I don't understand. How can you punish someone for that? That's asking me. That's like you're trying to condition people into socialism and saying that we're all gonna have the same thing. You're just gonna all get the same thing. Like in Russia, where they talked to you about the glasses factory, where everybody did the same thing and they were completely inefficient. Well, I don't want that. Sorry,
I
I
don't
don't.
want that either. Listen, I run a very successful dental practices, more than one. I'm financially, with the grace of God, I'm doing well. I'm not going to be getting a pay hike in getting into the political arena. But I made a promise to myself. I'm not going to complain. I'm going to try to be a solution. Will it be easy? No, nothing in life which is worthwhile is easy. But will it be meaningful? And can that change be made? Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely. But we got to start now.
but sometimes you have to see the value of things, and sometimes it's not translated in money. Because
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
look at my children, and I'm like, there has to be something for them, because at this rate, the country goes bankrupt. There will be nothing left for them. Nothing.
I agree. When I was a young man growing up, or even just a teenager, I was told by my parents that you need to work hard, you need to study, you need to be a person of good character. And if you do those things, you will have a successful future. I did those things. I went to school, I studied hard, I tried to be the best individual that I could. Honesty and integrity, I believe, are intertwined in my character. Can you ask those individuals who are in their teens, do they have the same belief that I did when I was growing up? No, they don't. They don't. Things such as home ownership seems like it's going to be out of their reach. A good job may be out of their reach. A lot of changes are going to happen, Dale, in the next little while. AI is going to come. AI is here. We don't know what it's going to do. What's our youth going to do here? What,
Yes.
what are they going to do?
Speaking of that, let's take a short commercial break. I need to play something from Mike Lindell, and then we'll come back and talk about this.
I hear every day about the products you all wish My Pillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard My Pillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use My Pillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all My Pillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard My Pillows absolutely free.
All right. So if anybody needs the My Pillow products, you can go to mypillow.com/Karis or call 800-845-2942 and use the promo code Karis. Get good stuff there. They got like bathrobes, beds, everything. So go check out mypillow.com. All right. So kind of back to this with what you're talking about, the kids. They're not getting the same thing they don't have the same values. What they're not even being taught properly in school. Like I looked at my oldest daughter, and they started to push this madness that they're putting in the schools, and I was like, no way. And I see what they're doing now. They're not they're not teaching Canadian values. They're not teaching things to help people be constructive. They have no future to come to. Like I remember when I was coming into school, like in Winnipeg, $100,000 was a very, very nice house, and so forth. Now, you're lucky to get a closet for that kind of money, right? And
Absolutely. There used to be a time where $1 million home was a mansion, or it was a dream for individuals. In the greater Toronto area, what does $1 million get you these days? Not much. Not much. And it doesn't even, it's not even that. It's not even, if you purchase your home, you pay down the mortgage and you think, okay, at least I'm free, but you're not. You got property tax. You have all the taxes on utility. These days, the carbon tax was introduced, and now all of a sudden, in bright wisdom, it's going to be taken away from consumers only. The afford. Listen, when you can't afford the basic necessities of life, what happens is individuals either go reclusive and get sad, or they go rogue and you see crime go up. We need to create an environment where people have meaning in their life, where they have joy of life. Life is a gift. Life is a gift. And we're very lucky that we were born, at least I'm very lucky that I was born in Canada. We need to change. We need to change that Canada so people could again feel that positivity that this nation used to bring to people.
uh, I agree. I grew up, and I would go to the States, and I would be like, I'm glad I'm coming back home to Canada. It was nice to visit, but I like it here. We had the freedom. Like, I mean, growing up out west, you had all the wide open spaces, great beaches, nobody to bother you. And then all of this stuff was just like, what's going on? Especially like there was always work. I never had a problem finding work or anything like that. Now you're people can't find jobs. They can't get in jobs that are going to pay them enough to live, and then people are working around the clock, or they're living you're getting a bunch of the young kids. You see them living in very small places with a bunch of people because, like you said, home ownership, it's a pipe dream now,
But
right?
that's not fair. That's
No.
not fair. And again, policies need to be created, which allows that the basic tenets of life, the basic the basic dreams that individuals have, if those aren't fulfilled, you're not gonna get a next generation or a generation after that, which is gonna be productive. And you go down this spiral, downward spiral, downward spiral. We need to pause, and we need change in the mindset, the way government is run. It needs to have a positive change where you need to understand it took us many, many years to get into the current situation we are in.
Yes.
It will take us many, many years to come out and climb out of this situation that we're in. However, you won't start climbing out of it until you don't change the mindset. You have to make the decision that you want that change. And that decision will not come from government alone. It will come from changing those individuals that are in government. And that will only come when the people speak out.
This is I agree because when I sat down and they talked about, like, even for example, like the immigration, I have no issue with immigration. I have an issue when you leave the door wide open, you don't vet people, you don't bring in the things that you actually need, and you bring up too much of the things that you don't need. Then you create a problem because guys they bring here, And they're like, oh, well, you're going to come here and work. Well, now I can't get a job because there's too many of that X, Y, whatever it is. So why did you bring that person here in the first place, knowing full well that you didn't need them? And then you're going to then put them into another situation. And then you're letting all these people that you don't know, that you're not properly vetting, and that it's creating more problems because Canada was built on people coming here. That's just the way it was.
Absolutely.
But
Canada,
you,
Canada's a land of immigrants. My parents were immigrants. They
yes,
immigrated in the 70s to Canada from India. But they came here legally. They came here to work hard. They came here to make their life better. I'm not saying that new immigrants that come don't espouse those values. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that if you have capacity for X number of individuals in your nation, and you go and get a number which is far surpasses that number, those when two things don't match, you're going to have a problem.
well, yes,
So
like
that's problem number one.
yeah, like for example, I think it was by July of last year. By that time, they had like 1.2 million immigrants coming into Canada by July of last year. That's 4% of our population.
Absolutely.
Like, how do how are we going to even sustain? This is why the housing prices and rental prices are skyrocketing because there's no vacancy rate. They're like, we don't have places to put them. So then why do you keep bringing them if there's nowhere for them to live? How does that make sense?
It didn't make sense. It didn't make sense. And the truth of the matter is that the current government, when it realized that it doesn't make sense and they heard an uproar, then they came out and admitted that we sort of miscalculated what we did. Again, the damage has been done. Can't cry over spilled milk. But what you can do is you can change things going forward. So, Dale, I'll give you an example. You alluded to the fact when you were introducing me that I'm a dental surgeon,
Yes.
right? You're a mechanical engineer. When I go in to a surgical procedure, in my mind, I believe I'm going to do step A, step B, step C, step D to get to a final outcome. In the real world, what happens is you may believe that you're going to start at point A and get to point B. Sometimes a hurdle comes in. What do? You keep on going? No. You stop. You assess the situation. You make the change that's required so you can move forward and get the optimal result. It's the same thing with immigration. With immigration, every Canadian knows and believes that our nation is a nation founded on immigration. We have a
Yes.
proud heritage of that. We don't want to lose that heritage. But what we do want to do is right now the door was left open for far too long, having too many individuals come in. And it's not fair for those individuals either.
No.
I mean, right? It's not fair for anybody. You can't blame the person who came here for a better life. They came here to also be productive members of society. I'll give you an example, an anecdotal example, but true. I know an individual who immigrated to Canada under some sort of program where they invested a lot of money to set up a business. And they did set up a business, and a very successful business in lentils and pulses. So because Canada produces tons of lentils and pulses and is a net exporter of these, that's the business that he got into. And about a year and a half after he came here, I realized that he hardly would stay here. He'd always go back to the country of his origin. And one day we were at a dinner, and I met him, and I asked him, I go, why is it that you wanted to come to Canada, you've become an immigrant and you have a successful business here. He goes, well, the reason why I don't want to stay here is because I'm taxed to death here. I realize the system. I realize I go to my business, I've employed people, but I'm not getting further in life. So I might as well make whatever money I can here, enjoy it elsewhere. Is that a good thing? I don't think so.
No, it's a terrible thing because the people who can't leave, like the Canadians, they're getting taxed to death, right?
Listen, I everything in life unfortunately comes at a price.
Yes.
Taxes are supposed to go towards those programs which make lives better for Canadians. Infrastructure, which helps the productivity of the nation, which connects the nation, which allows us to do things such as pipelines. I mean, these things we need. These
Yes.
things we need, right? That's where my tax dollars should go to. Shouldn't be wasted, right? When you go to the store, Dale, and you have in front of you a loaf of bread, and there's a price tag on it. One loaf of bread says $5, the other loaf of bread says $7, and perhaps there's one which says $10. You there have an option to choose which loaf of bread you want to buy because you know in exchange for your money what you are going to get.
Yes.
As a taxpayer, do I know what I'm going to get in exchange of my hard earned money? No, I'm not. Nobody is. I don't know where that money goes.
Yes. And then you have to think about how much money, when we send money to Ottawa, how much money actually comes back from the taxes, because the cost of processing it and all these hands that it changes, by the time it gets there and it gets back to us, we're getting like less than 50 cents on the dollar. That,
Absolutely, we're getting less than 50 cents on the dollar. Highest marginal tax rate in Canada, I believe, is 53%. Now, again, you have to, we always complain, right? I love when people always complain but don't come up with a solution. If you say that Canadians aren't as productive as our neighbors down south, well, have you looked at their tax laws?
I know. I'm like, I hear them complain and I'm like, come to Canada. Come to Canada, please.
Right? I mean, everyone is feeling that pinch, and this look, inflation's a tax. Is a pure tax, and the government loses nothing of it. They're always getting their 13% on whatever you buy. If you buy it for $1, they're getting 13 cents. If you buy it for $10, they're getting $1.30. We're the ones who are getting squeezed,
Yes.
and my wages aren't going up. Listen, I'm a small business owner. Okay, with the grace of God, I've been able to employ a number of individuals. Right, as a business owner, I would really like to give them a great wage. But as a business owner, the way our system is set up, the way the cost of living is, the cost of everything is, you can't offer that to them. If government wants to incentivize productivity, well then get out of the way of those people who are productive. Don't stand in my way. And that's what they're doing.
Yes, and we have to limit the amount of people being employed but in the bureaucracy. That needs to be trimmed down substantially because they're spending money. And it, like, for example, the number one reason for any endeavor to fail is poor risk management. And this is part of what I do, like, in engineering as a technologist. Doesn't matter, you have to sit down. What is the possibility of something happening? Is it possible? Yes. What is the likelihood? Then you have to sit down and think, if this happens, what do I do next? And you try to do as much as you can. Obviously sometimes you find out along the way, but you're trying to preemptively look at problems and think about what you need to do to prevent them, so that you have less that goes, oh, I didn't see that coming, and then guess what, we're bankrupt. Because when you're running a country, they need to have more risk management and objective risk management, not a bunch of people coming to get consensus because you're getting your paycheck, they should probably have third parties do risk management and so forth for the government so that they can start making better decision making processes, because all of every large business does risk ma- everybody does risk management to some degree. If you have some successful business, you're like, should I invest my money here? Well, no, don't do that, because you're going to
Hmm.
lose your money. Or I need to assess the person that I'm going to hire, because you're hiring somebody, it's a risk. But you want to lower the risks is okay. You go on through the interview process and select the right person that you think will do the job. The, why were This is what we need to implement in government. We
Absolutely, we need to implement that. And it hasn't been implemented till date. And unfortunately, until the people do not make a significant change when they go and vote, they'll get what we've always gotten. And having said that, the unfortunate part is that we also have to look at the position that we are currently in, not only in our country but in globally. In order for us to prosper, right now everybody is complaining about this tariff war.
oh yeah.
Obviously, as a Canadian, I I don't want myself or my fellow country people to go and experience this pain. But this should be a wake up call. For the longest time, we've exclusively, primarily, well, we've done a significant portion of business only with the US. And when we've had opportunities to do business elsewhere, but we've been smug about it. I think that needs to change as well.
Well, we yes, and we also need to do proper investments. Like, why didn't we? Why okay? Why did we not run that Energy East pipeline to start putting people to work in the Maritimes, allowing more of our oil to go out to those markets and so forth? And it's win-win for everyone. But then you want to go and buy like oil from regimes that are doing very bad things to people, horrendous human rights issues, or they just have no safety and no regard for their workers, and they're making it very dirty. They're not doing it responsibly. So, if we're more responsible at doing these things and we can produce them more efficiently and effectively and more humanely than other people, why are we getting it from somewhere else?
Because the narrative that we've been told is that there's a lot of blockades to pipelines. The narrative we've been told that it's not great for the environment. These are the narratives that we've been fed for the longest time. However, somebody has to take the bull by the horns and make that tough decision. Governance is not easy. It's not a walk in the park. It's very difficult. Sometimes, to affect change, difficult decisions have to be made, and you have to be firm about it. What we've gotten into is we've gotten into what I call, or I term, election cycle politics. What do I mean by election cycle politics? You come in right before the election, you make all these promises. When you get into office, you make all these excuses. 3 years of elapsed, campaign time again. We need a vision which goes beyond party lines, a vision which goes beyond election cycle politics, a vision which has in Canada's interests for the next 15 years, 20 years. And until you don't have that roadmap, that destination that you want this nation to get to, you will never get there. You will
You know,
never get there.
one thing I want to say is that we need to have performance based things with government jobs, especially when they're appointing and hiring people into those positions that are not elected. Because it's like, if you have a business and that person is not doing their job, or if they straight out refuse to do the work that they're expected to do, which sometimes we see in the government, they're refusing to do their work, fire them, right? And bring in another person. Oh, if you don't want to do the job that you are clearly hired to do, well, I'm going to replace you and I'm going to get something in. They need to have that message sent that we want efficiency. If you don't want to get on board with the efficiency, then we're going to have to replace you to get somebody who's going to be efficient, because we can no longer justify doing these kinds of things and putting this burden onto the taxpayers, onto the Canadians, and for future generations, because you can't keep increasing tax infinitely. That is bad. And like you said, businesses don't want to come to Canada because of the tax burden. We need to change
Because
that.
of the tax burden and because of the bureaucracy, because of the fact that something which should be fairly streamlined takes so long to accomplish here. You obviously deal throughout the before this before President Trump's tariffs, which is the greatest hype these days, we had a housing crisis. We still have a housing crisis, we just don't talk about it. That's a different story. But part of the reason is the bureaucracy. How long does it take to get a permit? Does it take a few days, weeks, months, or years? And if it takes the latter, why?
It's a good question.
Bureaucracy,
Exactly. And there's
right?
the tariffs.
The bureaucrats need to be told the new modus operandi is efficiency, efficiency, and efficiency. Get them to become efficient. Once you're efficient, the wheels will start to move. You will see traction. You will see things slowly and steadily improve. Change, it's like watching paint dry. It dries, but you can't really perceive it, right?
Yeah.
That's how it's a slow process, but it's got to start. It really needs to start. And I believe this 45th general federal election that we're having, this is the time that I believe Canadians should say, let's make that change that we need. Let's give those individuals who can represent our values, our concerns, again, in an honest, ethical manner, and move this nation incrementally out of the situation that we're in.
Yes, I agree. And we're running up on time, so we're going to close down here right away. So
Sure.
before you go, what do you want to say to people? Like, how can they reach you and so forth? Because we do need more common sense policies. We do need things that are reasonable. We do need to put the brakes on this and have responsible government. So yeah, here's your 2 minutes. What do you want to say to the people?
Well, first of all, thank you, Dill, and thank you to the individuals who've allowed me into their homes via this channel. My name is Vigish Sabarwal. I was born and raised here. Came from very very humble beginnings. You can find out more about me on my website, vigishsabarwal.com. Today, I really believe our nation is at the same tipping point that we are as individuals. We do need to effectively get out of this rut that we're in. And I believe competent, educated representation is what is required. I believe I fit those bills. I'm running from a riding called King Vaughan. I'm asking for you to at least have a look at what I can bring to the table. The decision is always yours, but at least give me as a candidate a look over. See if I can fulfill what your needs are, because that's what ultimately an MP's duty is. And if given the honor to serve you, I promise you I will be the best voice that I can be for you and advocate for you. I would work for you versus the opposite, which is currently happening in government.
All right. Thank you for coming. And I mean, everybody, check out what he has to say. Like, I'm not going to tell you who you should or shouldn't vote for, but I'm going to tell you with this election, you need to carefully consider what people are doing. And what I can say is, from what I've personally witnessed, I have seen the same thing from everyone in Ottawa the last few years, and I don't want any of that. So think about that. What did they say as opposed to what they actually did? Because we need change. We're at a crossroads in our country, and we need to save our country, or we're going to go the way of Venezuela. And I want to save my country because I like it the way it was, and I don't want it to get worse. And so that's really it. So I will close here with a prayer and thank you for coming because we can use some of that. All right. Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you this day for your love, grace, and mercy. We thank you for the hope that you have given us. And Lord, bless Vajish in his work as he's going to run for election, and the many other people who are going to run for office to try to make changes and help the men and the women to come together to rebuild our country, our family, our communities, and our churches. And Lord, most of all, protect the children from what is coming is my prayer. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank,
Amen.
thank you all for coming, and we'll see you again next time.
Thank you.